Hey guys, welcome back to the BuzWeaver channel. And in our top stories today from Yahoo News, China issues private warnings to U.S. on Pelosi's Taiwan trip from the Financial Times. Now, I find this very interesting, don't you? Because here on the BuzWeaver channel, we take the difficult, we take the complicated, we take the chaos and misunderstood, and try to bring some clarity to things and point out little subtleties that are often used in framing with the media or just general ideology out there, right, when it comes to narrative pushing. Private warnings really means that, to an extent, China is overly cautious, very xenophobic, very self-aware and insecure about their actions. Now, they want to appear strong, they want to appear powerful, but they don't want to be labeled as, say, for example, an aggressive military type, which is interesting. And so they try to always want to come from a position of them being victimized or them being attacked or oppressed or others, very similar to the way the left and or progressives here in the United States perceive even the smallest slights made by certain groups of individuals as offenses or denying them of things that they are entitled to. So that's kind of where the private warning thing kind of comes from. So China issued strong private warnings to the U.S. government about a planned trip to Taiwan by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, which included a possible military response, the Financial Times reported. Very interesting. It's just kind of like posturing by the Chinese because they really want a reason to go after Taiwan, but they don't, or Taipei as they call it. They really want to go after Taiwan, but they don't want to look like the aggressor. They never want to look like the bad guy, right? The whole world has been the bad guy to them. And I have to say, based on Chinese history, at least within the 20th century, it's been very brutal. So the Chinese have areas of argument to be made, but of course they are still part of the CCP. And when China or when Mao tried to apologize, or when Japan tried to apologize to Mao, Mao said, no, you don't need to apologize. It just made communism stronger. So the warnings were much stronger than those made previously when China wasn't pleased with U.S. policies and actions related to Taipei, the paper said, citing unidentified people familiar with the issue. And you guys know how much we love unidentified people familiar or unknown sources or confidential sources because, of course, we could just make them up here on our channel and say, well, this particular source said this or this particular source said that. But I press on. China's foreign ministry earlier this week officially vowed to take a resolute and strong response to any Taiwan visit by Pelosi, which was reported to be next month. Her trip would be the first by a House Speaker to Taipei since 1997. Now, doesn't it appear as though China is like this spurn child in this relationship with this idea that if you do anything, they're just going to get upset about it? Now, to us in the Western world, a lot of what the Chinese do does seem to be very petty, very childish in their dispositions, and they predicate a lot of this on the fact that, you know, they have been victimized or they've been taken advantage of, and so they're no longer going to just take it from any kind of bully. So their perspective is that anything counter to their narratives, anything counter to their ideologies, their philosophies, and worldview is seen as a threat. So very much like we see the left here, as I said earlier, where they just see examples of President Trump, things that he says as perceived slights. So Pelosi's office didn't respond to a request for the Financial Times for comment about whether she might abandon her trip. I don't think she will abandon it. I really don't know whether or not China is going to really do anything. They're looking for any sort of excuse and or opportunity to go after Taiwan, but they don't have anything particularly valid. In other words, like we see with Russia, Russia went in, basically here, Russia attacked Ukraine because Russia sees NATO as a threat. As NATO as countries in Europe continue to join NATO, it becomes more and more of a threat to Russia because, of course, the whole purpose of NATO is to protect European countries from Russia. And as we can see, Russia has already codified the fact that they will attack if provoked. So Russia didn't waste any of its time going through the same kind of song and dance that China, the CCP and or Beijing is trying to do, because Beijing is trying to play up to the fact that they want to be perceived as the victim who needs to defend themselves, whereas Russia is like, okay, NATO's moving in, we're not going to let it happen. Russia has made a lot of really dumb excuses for why they invaded Ukraine, which makes it kind of silly. If they just simply said, hey, we're concerned about NATO invading and this, that, and the other, that would not be justified, right? It wouldn't be a casus belli necessarily to just attack a country like Ukraine. But I think that this gives the big Russia haters, like the Democrats and so forth, a great opportunity to just lend as much money as possible. As of now, we have lent, I think it was, I heard the statistic on the radio, that we have now lent more to Ukraine than we spent in the 5 years in the Middle East. And it's in the trillions that we spent in the Middle East. And I think it was up to, I can't remember I think it was 1.6 billion we've already sent to the Ukraine, I think it was. So I don't have the data right here in front of me. This was just what I was kind of hearing and listening to and researching on my own. I didn't want to bring it into a video. So Beijing routinely responds angrily to countries that deal directly with Taiwan, which China claims as part of its territory. President Joe Biden also raised doubts about whether the visit would go ahead, saying Wednesday that the military thinks it's not a good idea right now. Why not? Why not? I mean, why be dictated to? Because, see, this is what's going on here. Russia and China know that the best opportunity to take any kind of military action is right now under Joe Biden. But that is not to suggest that you should underestimate the power of the United States military. Because whether it's Joe Biden, whether it's President Trump, whether it's any president, the military is still the military, and they can still do things far more effectively, far better, way, way better than Russia's doing right now in Ukraine, because we find it, we make a little bit of a joke about the fact that Russia's supposed to be the second most powerful country in the world. Yeah, the second most powerful in Ukraine, because they have clearly shown that they've got some major issues that they need to take care of if they want to continue to engage in whatever little nonsense, what is it they call it, the special operations in Ukraine. But nonetheless, guys, this was just kind of a fun little, well, I don't know if you can call it fun, but just a point of interest of mine, because you guys know that I keep up with China and international events and so forth, and try to bring a little bit of that ideology and philosophy to those who may not understand, that different cultures think differently than the West. They really do. And that's what I have for you guys today. If you haven't already, guys, you're watching the video there. Appearing on the screen, that would be the channel icon if you're watching here on the YouTubes. You can click on that and subscribe to the channel, as well as get notifications. Thank you guys for all your support. I mean that sincerely, because it has been very difficult for all of us as creators here on YouTube. So your support is always appreciated. And I'll see you guys in the next video.